North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. Welcome to the broadcast. What do we do here? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. I make commentary. That's not the news. That's just my opinion, just as valuable as yours. And that's why we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Want to thank you very much for being a part of our show. You can take part in it by calling me at 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. You can also join us on our chat room, which is on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. If you're watching on Rumble and Patreon, this broadcast was recorded earlier in the day for playback at this time. And I hope that you're enjoying both Patreon and Facebook. Facebook and Patreon and Rumble. Okay. So, hi, Beth Ann. How are you? How's everything going? How's your holiday season unfolding? Tell me how you're doing. She's the first person to get through on the chat room derby today. She wins the chat room derby. So, Beth Ann, it's a pleasure. This is a journalistic effort. If you are new to the broadcast, we do report the news honestly and fairly. And we also analyze it for fact and bias, and we point out both. And this particular story is not just about fact and bias, but also outrageous hypocrisy. And what we're doing here is we're basically going through this because we've been following the Twitter story with regard to all the Twitter files, because Elon Musk bought the company. He bought the company from a corporation. He took the company private. He owns it lock, stock, and barrel. And because of that, he can do anything he chooses with his company. He has come under huge attack by the left because the left has dirty hands when it comes to Twitter. We've been covering the fact that the deep state and the mainstream media and Twitter and all of the other social media companies have worked to, or shall we say, have colluded together to affect our nation's elections. That is simply true. Now, where does it go after this? Who knows? But there's another interesting rubric here, that as soon as Elon Musk started working with Twitter, and started and owning it and making it public and so on and so on, the left, including the media, started attacking him left, right, and center. And the way they did it was insidious, and it was terrible. For example, there was an account on Twitter called @ElonJet. And what that does is that particular Twitter account tracks the location of Elon Musk's private jet. The account was first suspended earlier in the day. This was last Wednesday, day before yesterday, raising questions about the billionaire's pledge to allow free speech on the social media platform. Later, Twitter reinstated the account, said it updated its private information policy to prohibit sharing someone else's live location in most cases. When someone shares an individual's live location on Twitter, there is an increased risk of physical harm, said the company. Moving forward, we'll remove tweets that share this information, and accounts dedicated to sharing someone else's live location will be suspended. Perfectly reasonable. Perfectly reasonable. Critics pointed out that Twitter's policy would technically prevent all posts that could reveal someone's location. Well, that is the mainstream media trying to create problems for Elon Musk. This is very simple. This is very straightforward. If you are trying to name a live location where someone who, shall we say, takes heat from just citizens at large, or might be a target, then you're going to get your account suspended. That does not mean that, my goodness gracious, what if somebody puts a tweet up there that talks about their own location? That has nothing to do with that. This is involuntary information. This is doxing. And this is something that the mainstream media takes part in all the time. You know, the companies, not the companies, but the pressure groups regarding the Dobbs decision of the Supreme Court. They would have had absolutely no purchase whatsoever in American society with the private addresses of only conservative Supreme Court justices had it not been for the fact that the mainstream media dutifully published them all. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous and foolish and stupid and dishonest and dangerous. And oh, by the way, they were also published on social media, which is something that almost got one of the Supreme Court justices killed. Musk clarified Twitter users could post a location without a time delay or post a location with a time delay, and added exceptions such as sharing a video of a breaking news event. Later Wednesday evening, Musk said he planned on taking legal action against this person who had this account named Sweeney. Let me see if I can come up with his name here. I might have missed it in the actual coverage. Let me go through here, moving forward, et cetera, et cetera. Time delay. It doesn't say. It just says Sweeney, whoever Sweeney happens to be. I have no idea who Sweeney is. Let me see here. 2 women. Okay. Well, it doesn't say so. I'm trying to get through this one more time. I'm looking at the USA Today article directly. And yeah. Whoever's responsible, I believe it's responsible for this particular Jet Twitter post. He plans to take legal action against that person and organizations who supports harm for his family. Musk, who is a self-described free speech absolutist, said last month that he would allow Jet Tracker accounts that had the Jet Tracker account, which had 530,000 followers. My commitment to free speech extends even to not banning the account following my plane, even though that is a direct personal safety risk. So the Florida college student, Jack Sweeney, was surprised when his personal Twitter account and the Musk Jet tracking account were suspended. Accounts that tracked the jet flights of Mark Zuckerberg, John Kerry, Donald Trump were also suspended. Good. In response, Sweeney created a Mastodon account to track Musk's jet. He uses public air traffic data to track the jet's flights and regularly provides updates on the location of the jet, which is mean-spirited, nasty, rotten, and awful. You know, I used to live in Las Vegas. And in Las Vegas, you see everyone. Everyone in the world at some point or another comes to Las Vegas. It's just the way it is. And those of us who have lived in Las Vegas for more than 15 minutes realize that those people are not there to be accosted by the public. I mean, you're walking down the street and, wow, there is Thomas Hitman Hearns. You're walking down the street and there's Elton John and so on and so on. It happens all the time. And so what ends up happening is that the people who live in Las Vegas, far, far away from the tourist areas, will see these people walking around in their neighborhoods, and we basically leave them alone. You'll just say, hi, how's it going? I remember when I saw Thomas Hearns, I said, how's it going, champ? He said, great. And I walked right past. We leave those people alone because it's polite. And this idea that doxing is somehow some sort of, it's the ultimate passive-aggressive weapon. It's just plain awful. It is so immature and so ridiculous that people that take part in it, ought to get their butts kicked hard. It's just plain ridiculous. You can be nice, whether you disagree with somebody or not. Trying to get them hurt is just an awful, awful way to spend your time. Stop it. Stop it. Engage these people where they're supposed to be engaged. Engage them in the court of public opinion. That's what this show is about. If you disagree with Elon Musk, if you think that he's absolutely doing the wrong thing by putting these journalists' accounts on suspension, call me on the telephone and tell me why. I don't happen to think it's a bad idea. I think what we have right now is we have a hypocrisy that is finally being exposed, like so many other things having to do with Twitter. all these journalists, these so-called journalists that had been trying to create problems for Elon Musk, especially since he took over Twitter. All these people are now crying and yelling and screaming and how terrible it is that free speech is being squelched, and so except they didn't say anything when it was happening to other people. They didn't say a word. And suddenly, when it actually visits itself upon them, well, the entire earth is ending. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So once again, Elon Musk went ahead and got rid of this account that tracks his jet. That's a very good thing. I'm glad. Now, to get back to the journalist aspect, this from the Washington Post. Twitter suspended the accounts of more than a half a dozen journalists from CNN, the New York Times, Washington Post, and other outlets, as company owner Elon Musk accused reporters of posting basically assassination coordinates for himself and his family. The Post has seen no evidence that any of the reporters did so. This is the Washington Post. The suspensions came without warning or initial explanation from Twitter. They took place a day after Twitter changed its policy on sharing live location information and suspended an account at Elon Jet that had been using public data flight information to share the location of Musk's private airplane. It's called a private airplane for a reason. Many of the journalists suspended, including Washington Post technology writer Drew Harwell, had been covering the rule change as well as Musk's claim that he and his family had been endangered by location sharing. Twitter did not directly respond to questions about the suspension, but Musk said on Twitter without evidence that the journalist had revealed private information about his family, known as doxing. Criticize me all day long is totally fine, but doxing my real-time location and endangering my family is not. He tweeted that late last night. Harwell, whose most recent stories covered the ban of Elon Jet and the rise of baseless claims on Twitter, discovered he was unable to log onto his account or tweet around 7:30 p.m. last night. Harwell was banished from Twitter without warning, process, or explanation following the publication of his accurate reporting about Musk, said Post executive editor Sally Busby. Our journalist should be reinstated immediately. What are you talking about, Ms. Busby? I was shadow banned on Twitter. I was shadow banned for my journalistic efforts. And oh, by the way, my journalistic efforts, regardless of what many people may say about this broadcast, are nonpartisan. They're fact-based. They're constitutionally based. In other words, what I do is I report the news through a constitutional lens. And I got banished from Twitter. I mean, they never said anything about it. All of a sudden, I just realized that I lost 250 followers and I couldn't see my tweets anywhere. As a matter of fact, I'd watch them pop up and then they'd disappear. It was amazing. I could go to my own particular account and look at those tweets. They were right there. But if I actually looked at them in the feed, no joy. And so the thing about it is this, is that the Washington Post never said anything about the Wells report being banished from Twitter when I was making serious points about how the government of the United States was ignoring the fact that there were people called the deep state trying to destroy the president. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. Thanks very much for being here. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. And so this does point out a real serious ethical dilemma. The original Twitter 1.0, shadow banned people, made them disappear, et cetera, as we all know now, because Elon Musk grabbed all of that information. Elon Musk is also somebody who is being doxxed. He has not proven it. He hasn't put his evidence out there, probably because he doesn't want people to realize how it can be done. It's that famous FBI sources and methods thing. But what he did do was he did point out that there were people that were doxing him. As in fact, there were 8 other journalists besides Mr. Harwell of the Washington Post. CNN reporter Donnie O'Sullivan was suspended shortly after posting a tweet about Musk's claim that a crazy stalker had chased his young son in Los Angeles. Matt Binder, a Mashable reporter, was tweeting about O'Sullivan's suspension when his account went dark. Independent journalist Tony Webster's account was also suspended as of Thursday evening. So were the accounts of former MSNBC host Keith Olbermann, Intercept reporter Michael Lee, Voice of America's chief national correspondent Steve Herman, and Aaron Rupar, a Substack writer with nearly 800,000 followers on Twitter. It is impossible to square Twitter's free speech aspirations with the purging of critical journalists' accounts. This, according to American Civil Liberties Union Executive Director Anthony D. Romero in a statement. The First Amendment protects Musk's right to do this, but it's a terrible decision. Their accounts should be restored immediately. The accounts were labeled Direction of Ella in internal Twitter systems, according to 2 former employees in contact with Twitter staff. Ella Irwin, the company's head of trust and safety, has carried out many of Musk's orders since he purchased the company in late October and began upending the rules in the name of what he called free speech. A prior suspension was marked Direction of Ellis, okay? And this was Drew Harwell. He wrote a particularly snotty note to Elon Musk. I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case. Irwin told The Verge, without commenting on any specific accounts, I can confirm that we will suspend any account that violates our privacy policy and puts others at risk. Musk tweeted late last night the suspension would last a week, although several of the reporters have been informed by Twitter they were banned permanently later that night. Elon Musk took a Twitter poll on when he should reinstate the accounts, but restarted it after a plurality of respondents said he should do so immediately. Musk also repeated his baseless allegation that journalists had revealed private information about his family. You know, baseless information, it's not just baseless information if somebody doesn't decide to show you how he finds out about these people trying to dox Elon Musk. You have to decide that Elon Musk is a liar. In other words, these people were banned because in Elon Musk's world, he was being doxxed by them. If you don't believe that, then you can start throwing out all this stuff about free speech and how he's being a hypocrite and blah, 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 blah. But the thing about it is, remember, none of this happened when an entire conservative newspaper was banned. None of this happened. But you start taking shots at leftist journalists who, in the mind of Elon Musk, were giving out assassination coordinates of his particular location at any given moment, which, by the way, is a very good reason to go ahead and suspend somebody's account, right? You're suggesting that we were sharing your address. You posted a link to the address, said Musk. This was, according to, this was Harwell. You posted a link to the address. In the course of reporting on Elon Jet, we reported a link to Elon Jet, which is now not online. Musk left the call abruptly about 4 minutes into it. Yeah. So in other words, he caught him red-handed doxing him and he suspended their account, and it's the end of the world. There's more. We'll have it for you next. This is the Wells Report. Thanks for being with us today. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. It's Friday. It is Friday, and we have a weekend coming up next. How exciting. We'll actually be able to do some resting, hopefully. By the way, in case you're wondering, it's the holiday season, and I've got some information regarding what's going to happen with the holiday schedule of the Wells Report. That'll be coming up in the third hour. As a matter of fact, the last segment of the show for today, and we'll be telling you a little bit more about the schedule and what I'll be doing during the holiday season, so that you don't forget that I exist. Not that it's about me. It's not about me. I'm just saying the show's got to take a vacation, and we're going to be taking one during the holiday season because basically everybody does. Everybody takes vacation. I have worked through the holiday season on several different occasions, realizing that no one was there. And that's because, hey, you know what? You got to take a break. And I've been going at this every day, except for minor interruptions, since June 1st. And so I've got some work I've got to get done here. And I'll tell you more about that at the end of the broadcast today, the end of hour number 3 here on the Wells Report. Okay. So we're talking a little bit about Elon Musk and how he is someone who now owns Twitter. It's a private company. He can do anything with it he chooses. He has been exposing the fact that people were shadow banned and so on and so on. And what ended up happening is he discovered, according to himself, according to Elon Musk, he discovered that there were journalists, there were 9 of them, as far as I can tell. There were 9 of them that were putting out his actual location at any given moment in real time. And Elon Musk called them assassination coordinates, changed the privacy aspect so that live information about where someone is cannot be reported by somebody else, and then immediately suspended the accounts of journalists who were doing that exact thing with Elon Musk. It's one of the very sneaky, nasty, dirty things that people of the left, including the media, feel is their absolute duty. This idea of confronting people that do things politically that you disagree with in public, not allowing them to be comfortable, not allowing them the comfort of even anonymity in the public square. Well, that's what they do. And once again, Elon Musk caught them red-handed doing it, and he took exception to it, and he owns the company, and he did what he had to do. That is different. That is different from Twitter 1.0, which was a public company. And at some point, the public, you are beholden to the public at some point and in some way. So there are differences here, but they're immediately being glossed over by the mainstream media, which is also typical. There was something that I wanted to, there was a quote here. It said something, let's see, he banned some high-profile accounts before the Thursday purge. The same day, Twitter outlawed the sharing of live location information, including information shared on Twitter directly or links to travel routes, actual physical location, or other identifying information that would reveal a person's location, regardless if the information is publicly available. Yet none of the tweets from suspended reporters that the Post has reviewed revealed the location of Musk or his family. There's more to the story. And remember what I tell you about propaganda. It's not what you add to a news story that makes it propaganda. It's what you take away. There's more to this story, and the Post isn't reporting it. Representative Lori Trahan, she's a Democrat from Mississippi, said Thursday night her staff had met the same day with Twitter officials. They told us they are not going to retaliate against independent journalists or researchers who publish criticisms of the platform. Less than 12 hours later, multiple technology reporters had been suspended. Well, it wasn't because they were criticizing Twitter. It was because they were breaking the rules. Not just the rules of Twitter at the moment, but the rules of common decency. The Committee to Protect Journalists assailed the suspension in a statement. We are concerned about news reports that journalists who have covered recent developments involving Twitter and its owner, Elon Musk, have had their accounts on the platform suspended. If confirmed as retaliation for their work, this would be a serious violation of a journalist's right to report the news without fear of reprisal. A spokesperson, by the way, that's all well and good. That's a fine statement to be made, and I agree with most of it, right up to the point where You're talking about journalists who have cashed in their objectivity chips in response to the opportunity to sit at the political table. If you're a politician disguised as a journalist, you lose that right. You absolutely lose that right because politics is not news. News of politics is news, but politics itself is not news. If politics does become news, that's propaganda. That's not news either. It's like John David's journalism course. There you go. A spokesperson for the New York Times called the suspensions questionable and unfortunate in a statement on last night. Neither the Times nor Ryan have received any explanation about why this occurred, said Charlie Stadlander. We hope that all the journalist accounts are reinstated. The Twitter provides a satisfying explanation for this answer. In a company's, or this action rather, in a company's statement, CNN called the suspension of O'Sullivan and other reporters impulsive and unjustified and said that it had asked Twitter for an explanation. We will evaluate our relationship based on that response. And oh, by the way, there was a statement that said doxing rules, anti-doxing rules apply to everyone, including journalists. Now, that was from the Washington Post. This is from USA Today. Multiple journalists found their Twitter accounts suspended last night, including several who cover the social media platform. Last night, Twitter CEO Elon Musk responded to the suspensions in a series of tweets, noting the suspended accounts, posted his exact real-time location or basically assassination coordinates. Musk said their posts were in direct violation of Twitter's terms of service and said, criticizing me all day long is totally fine, but doxing my real-time location and endangering my family is not. Remember, a stalker started following his Elon Musk's son around in Los Angeles. That happened last night too. You got to keep this going here. All right, you got to understand this. And then it was morphed into, well, Elon Musk started suspending the accounts of people who criticize him. That's not the point. Criticizing me all day long is fine. Doxing my real-time location and endangering my family is not. Musk seemed to dance around the length of suspension, making jokes about it, lasting the 1 day versus 7. 1 day of Twitter suspension is not death, he said to one social media user. 7-day suspension for doxing. Some time away from Twitter is good for the soul, he said. Here's a look at some of the journalists whose accounts that were scrubbed from Twitter, the Twitterverse, as well as how you can keep up with other platforms. Drew Harwell, he works at the Washington Post. Donnie O'Sullivan, he's a correspondent for CNN. Matt Binder, he is a reporter for Mashable. Ryan Mack, a reporter for technology for the New York Times. Aaron Rupar, he's an independent journalist. Okay, independent journalist. Micah Lee works at the Director of Information for The Intercept. Steve Herman is a chief national correspondent, Voice of America. Those are the guys that got their accounts suspended. And look, let the word go forth from this time and place. Stop telling people that you disagree with politically. Stop telling everybody in the Twitterverse where those persons are located in real time. Stop it. These people got caught red-handed, and they also happen to notice that Elon Musk didn't necessarily want to rub their noses in it. There is one transcript, one brief transcript, a piece of it actually, of a phone call where he said, you posted a link to where I happen to be in real time. And it got you suspended. And I suspect that that's the case with all these other reporters. Now, Elon Musk does what I do. He invites response. He's what he's done with Twitter is he's made Twitter, the actual platform, interactive with regard to Twitter management. You can actually reach out to Twitter management and talk to them about it, about whatever drives you nuts. They don't necessarily respond to everybody, but believe me, if Keith Olbermann decides that he's going to say something, they'll respond to him. And that's what I try to do here. You don't have to agree with everything I say. I'm not going to disagree. I'm not going to agree with everything you say. And our rules of engagement are very, very simple. The rules of engagement here is you've got to be respectful of the people that you're interacting with. You can't be disrespectful. You can't be disrespectful. If you are disrespectful, and believe me, I know it when I see it. If you're trolling, then yeah, you can be suspended. And I have suspended people in the past for doing exactly those things, and I explained to them and warned them before I did it, which is somewhat different than what Twitter does. And by the way, that wasn't a death sentence either. They were allowed to come back. Now, in the intervening time, I have pointed out to a couple of individuals that this show is not for them. I didn't suspend them. What I did was I invited them to go elsewhere. And the reason is because this broadcast is not about arguing with one person over one silly point after another, after another, after another. It was basically trolling. And you can ask the people on the chat room that I interact with about these people. They'll tell you the truth. So once again, we have all of this being focused on Twitter, but none of it's focused on Facebook. None of it's focused on YouTube. None of it's focused on Instagram. None of it's focused on Google. What did they do to interrupt, to create problems for people they disagree with politically during the elections of the last 3 or 4 cycles? Let's see, quite a number of conservative journalists were banned. An entire newspaper was banned, said Mark Greer. Mark, thanks for the quote. But that was okay since they were conservatives. Now the proverbial shoe is on the other foot, and they don't like it. Yeah, exactly. A lot of doctors and nurses were also banned, and that's something else I want to talk to you about. We'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. I love the list of leftists you were reading whose accounts are dark. In other words, like in elections, the left can cheat, but the right is supposed to follow the law and rules to the letter. Correct. They're ballistic about Musk. He must be doing something right. Correct again. This is Eddie Jones. Anheuser-Guzman unions around health and public works in Great Britain are on strike now. That's interesting. That's that answer to everyone's prayer, the National Health Service. Isn't it interesting that the unions who work in the health industry there, the National Health Service, are on strike? Isn't that fascinating? Let's see. How could they possibly be? Yeah. Bhattacharya, we're going to be talking about him in just a couple of moments. He's one of the doctors that was banned. Also, anybody that mentioned hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin were banned. Interestingly, the CDC says they never said ivermectin wasn't effective or that you shouldn't use it. In fact, I went to the CDC website. Ivermectin was specified as a treatment for COVID-19. And I reported as much. That was one of the facts that just magically disappeared regarding the political interference with the CDC. It's one of the examples that I use when I say the CDC needs to be banned, needs to be abolished, and they need to start over with something else. Let's see. What do we got here? I'm just going down through this because I want to do this. Yes, you earned a holiday break. We all got hustle and bustle going on right now. That's fact. Let's see. Elon set up a vote on the matter. He did, and that's what I try to do. I try to make sure that people have an opportunity to appeal the decisions I make. That's a good thing. That's a good idea. Twitter is a private company, as it was before Elon Musk bought it. No, it was a public corporation. As a private company, people do not have First Amendment protection. Yeah, except remember the corporate rules. The Twitter 1.0 was a public corporation, Arthur, and there are limits to what privacy will allow when it comes to a public corporation. Like, for example, when Elon Musk showed up with a offer to buy Twitter, they couldn't say no. They could not say no. I mean, the shareholders, if they have to put it up to a vote for the shareholders. And the shareholders said, sure, sell it. And they did. Now, he didn't want to because a lot of it was fake. But the thing about it is that he just realized he was going to have to spend the money, and he spent the money. So there you go. So it was not a private company before. It was a corporation. Let's see. They want a 19% increase in GB. GB, Green Bay. They want Green Bay to be 19% bigger? Okay. That's right. I forgot about that. Forgot about what, Mark? Did I say something that made you... Okay. Replying to Arthur Davenport, public corporations are not governmental entities. Yeah, that's true. They're not governmental entities, but there is corporate law. There is corporate law. And there is a certain level of transparency that corporate law dictates and demands. Okay? So there you go. Now, by the way, nobody in Twitter is going to go to jail. Twitter 1.0 for shadow banning anybody. Nobody's going to do that. All right? But the FBI and the Director of National Intelligence and all those government officials that we're talking every week to these particular platforms, they have real legal trouble because they have violated the Constitution. At least that's the way it looks to me. And so there's trouble there for them, but not the actual company. Back with more coming up in just a couple of minutes. This is the Wells Report. Thanks for being with us today. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. Let me finish this up here for just a couple of minutes. Let's see. I have this really nice keyboard, which is made by Logitech, and the keys are so sensitive, it's impossible to use. Like for example, I just did D and got the F, and DF, and the bill of rights. RGHTS. Good. Okay, there you go. All right, so this is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Let me talk to you a little bit about something that I don't know exactly where this is going to come down and how this is going to be dealt with, but there is a bit of liability here. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya spoke out against Twitter censorship after revelations he was blacklisted on the platform in 2021. Bhattacharya said he believes the move was intentional to keep his message against COVID-19 lockdowns from reaching the public. Bhattacharya is a professor at Stanford University, explained on Tucker Carlson Tonight last night that he joined Twitter in August of 2021, specifically to share that lockdowns and school closures were not necessary in managing the pandemic. He wanted the American population to know there were other ways to protect vulnerable people. I was put on a trend blacklist the moment I joined, said Bhattacharya. That what that means is that when I write a tweet, my followers see the tweet, but the trend blacklist makes sure that people outside of my followers don't see the tweet. Bhattacharya said he remained on the blacklist until only a week ago. He was then invited by Elon Musk to Twitter headquarters, where they discussed the circumstances of the censorship. Bhattacharya learned that he was blacklisted at the request of unspecified agents, either inside or outside Twitter. It's unclear who those agents were. That being said, remember, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google, all those people were meeting with the FBI, the Director of National Intelligence, and other United States federal law enforcement agencies every week. The only thing that those agencies should be talking to those social media groups about would be the limits of what they could do and could not do regarding censorship on their platforms. Now, logic dictates that if they were meeting every week, and yet people like Dr. Bhattacharya were being blacklisted, trend blacklisted, that means that nobody in the government was objecting to that, which they should have been doing based on their oaths of office that they take to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And they obviously didn't do that because Dr. Bhattacharya's account was suspended. Now remember, Mark Zuckerberg said, well, it's the FBI. They said we should be really worried about what this Russian disinformation could be. This notwithstanding of the fact that Zuckerberg gave $400 million to the Democrat Party. And so he was perfectly willing to squash the Hunter Biden laptop story. But remember something. There is a government interaction going on here. And at the very minimum, that government interaction means one thing and one thing only. That those government agencies were perfectly fine with the censorship that was going on. They did not stop it. And when we talk about Twitter and all these people saying we need to have a government investigation, the DOJ needs to look at this deal, blah, 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 blah. Oh, wait a second now. Okay, we can do all that, but how are you going to have all of those investigations undertaken when the people that were actually meeting with these groups once every week would be doing the investigating? See? This is horrendous. Let's see. John Bruin says, I find the fascination with Twitter amusing. Musk paid $44 billion to acquire it, which was twice what financial analysts valued it at. It produced minimal revenue, as many advertisers have left the platform. Why did they leave the platform, John? Why? Was it a leftist conspiracy to try to hurt him financially? That's out there. You find it fascinating. Tell me about my questions regarding the FBI, the Director of National Intelligence, and the other federal law enforcement agencies interacting with these social media platforms every week. I want you see, that's what you're forgetting about the Twitter story. You're not forgetting it. You're leaving it out because you don't want to deal with it. Well, I want you to deal with it. I want you to deal with it. Okay? I want you to deal with it. The government should not be involved in decisions of private companies regarding what to permit on their platforms. Correct. But they were. So, John, waiting for your answer. CDC took their original statements against hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin off their page and put support of other things on. Correct. And we reported it on the Wells Report every time it happened because I was going through it every day and being criticized for covering the COVID-19 story every day. But look at the perspective it gave all of us. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Strange, John Bruin says he doesn't understand. He hasn't gotten back to us. Strange, isn't that weird? This is the Wells Report. Hour number 2 is coming up. All right, beloveds. Thanks very much. I'll look forward to John's response. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. What do we do here? We report the news, honestly, fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. I make commentary, and we debate. The commentary, by the way, is not news. It's debatable, hence the debate. It fascinates me how people show up on this broadcast knowing clearly what we're all about. There's a guy named John who's interacting with me regarding Twitter. And he ran himself into a question that I asked him. He said, I find the fascination with Twitter amusing. Musk paid $44 billion to acquire it, which was twice the financial analyst valued it at. It produces minimal revenue as many advertisers left the platform. And I pointed out that was for all intents and purposes, a leftist conspiracy. Then I asked the question, what about the reality of the Twitter story that is fascinating? And that was the government interference and collusion with Twitter and its previous management to alter the realities of the 2020 and 2022 elections. And strangely, he didn't answer. He didn't answer, and I called him out on not answering. And then he came back with this. Musk is hemorrhaging Tesla stock to cover losses, and Tesla investors are worried about his time spent with his Twitter involvement. Tesla shares are down 64% from a peak last November. Okay, I actually reported that story, John, when it happened, and that was 2 weeks ago. But what's interesting to me is that doesn't have anything to do with the question I asked you, which was about FBI, Office of National Intelligence, DHS, and other federal law enforcement agencies involved in the editorial decision-making of social media sites. And didn't hear anything back until I got this. JD, I offered my thoughts on the whole Twitter affair like everybody else here. I didn't come on here to be badgered by you to answer a question I have no interest in. So he has no interest in whether or not Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google, any of these social media big tech giants were being at least interfered with the FBI, the Director of National Intelligence, and lied to by those same agencies. He has no interest in that. And I wasn't badgering. That's called debate. And it was respectful. I've been nice. And there you go. So what's interesting on that is this gives us an opportunity to define what kind of a discussion we're going to have on this broadcast. Yes, you don't have to answer a question you're not interested in. But then that creates another question for me. Why aren't you interested in that question? Is it because you don't care that federal law enforcement agencies are taking part in American censorship? Is that really where you stand, John? You don't care whether the federal government takes part in a company to promote, if not help, the censorship of American voices and what they say? There's a real problem with that, and it takes us back to Dr. Bhattacharya. Okay? He was one of these guys that was trend blacklisted. And what ended up happening is that he remained on that blacklist until only a week ago. He was then invited by Elon Musk to the Twitter headquarters. They discussed the circumstances of the censorship. Dr. Bhattacharya learned that he was blacklisted at the request of unspecified agents, either inside or outside Twitter, but it was unclear who the agents were. Keep listening. Bhattacharya is involved with a case with the Attorneys General Office of Missouri and Louisiana, as well as the New Civil Liberties Alliances. In those cases, Bhattacharya claimed that particular case found that government actors were in contact with Twitter and told social media platforms who and what to censor regarding COVID information. That's a violation of the First Amendment by government officials. And you don't care about that, John. Is that really it? Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Okay. That is concerning and brings up First Amendment issues. But it also brings up government corruption issues. It actually is a constitutional crisis. This also points out something else that happened. Remember Rod Rosenstein? James Comey? John Brennan? James Clapper? All those guys getting together and saying after Rod Rosenstein said, hey, wait, I can wear a wire into the Oval Office and try to get President Trump to give us enough information so that we can trigger a 25th Amendment removal from office. That's called a coup. A real one. Not a conjured up one to cover somebody's backside from a real one, which is what happened with the January 6th mess, which, by the way, was a mess. But this is very simple. The federal government has been caught red-handed, working with companies, in this case, United States corporations, to violate the First Amendment of the Constitution. And when you start thinking about the fact that violation, some of those violations involved doctors reporting on the realities of COVID-19, how many people lost their lives because of that censorship? There was one ironclad example of what I'm talking about. The CDC said ivermectin was a prescribed treatment for COVID-19 on their website until it became a political football. And then it was taken down. Meanwhile, there were doctors all across the country saying ivermectin works just fine. What are you guys talking about? No, it's not. Yes, you can use it in a veterinary sense, but that's not what we're talking about here. On and on and on. The mainstream media just plowed forward as if none of that mattered. How many people lost their lives? How many COVID-19 victims lost their lives because of that censorship? Yeah. January 6th was a mess. It seems like I'm in the minority of that, minority opinion on that. So the most people don't believe that January 6th was a mess? Just saying. Ex-retired CIA, FBI, Fauci's daughter, all working at Twitter. Yeah, Eddie, that's true. Yep. A coup was when Trump instructed Pence to throw out the state electors and replace them with fake electors. That is a coup, sir. No, it's not. That is not a coup. When government officials show up to try to sabotage a presidential term, and it's in the public record, that's a coup. As far as when it comes to Pence and Trump and so on and so forth, I have a problem with your idea that Trump instructed Pence to throw out state electors and replace them with fake electors. Mike Pence did exactly what he was supposed to do in that entire affair. What President Trump said had no effect on the actual things that were going on. Absolutely none. Mike Pence did that straight down the line. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. There were people that objected to slates of electors. It was investigated by the body. They found no basis for it, and they moved on. All the while during the January 6th mess, which was a mess, in case you think it wasn't a mess. Yeah. The idea that there were federal law enforcement directors, national intelligence directors working to sabotage a presidential administration, that's a coup, man. Yeah, that's a coup. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so Pence, according to Pence lawyers, Trump asked him to change the electors. Well, he can't change the electors. He's bound by rules that are already in place regarding this particular certification of the Electoral College vote. Okay, there you go. You don't have a problem with the sitting president telling his VP to overturn an election. I don't have any problem whatsoever with people saying really stupid things that don't actually happen. I don't have any problems with it whatsoever. And every time President Biden says something incredibly stupid that doesn't actually happen, we write it off as a gaffe and we just move on. Okay? There you go. Did President Trump comport himself the way presidents ought to? No. If he loses the 2024 election, is that going to be the reason why? Because he doesn't act like a president? Probably. That's why I keep saying things like, Mr. President, if you are serious about becoming the president again, you're going to have to start acting like one. I said that on this broadcast. But you have to understand something. This man's a disruptor in a government, as we have found out, desperately needs to be disrupted because it is operating at cross purposes with the Constitution and Bill of Rights. That's not up for debate now. That's the news. This government is working at cross purposes with the Bill of Rights of the United States and the Constitution. And the reason it's operating under those circumstances is because politicians are in charge. We don't need more politicians in charge, obviously. We need other people in charge. That's why, Isaac, I'm looking very much forward to you running for office. I know that you're a Democrat. I know that you and I disagree vehemently. But I guarantee you that if you run for office, I'm going to show up at your rallies. And I'm going to stand right up there and I'm going to say, you know what? I got to be honest with you. I disagree with Isaac Tate's politics. But you know what he's got over everybody else in politics right now? The credentials of an honest man. I've known him for years. He's not a politician. But if you're going to vote for a Democrat anyway, do me a favor. Vote for this one. Because he's our neighbor. He's not somebody trying to destroy the Constitution of the United States. There. I expect you, Isaac, to declare your candidacy. I'll be there, man. I'll help you every step of the way. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. Let's see what else. Let's see. Trump did not know the rules, says John. That's why he asked Pence to do so. You know, there's a lot of truth in that statement, John. You know, I do not believe that one of the problems with arrogance, okay? One of the problems with arrogance, and that is something that Donald Trump is, how do I say this? Saturated in, okay, is you think you know everything. Yeah, I don't believe that Trump knew the rules, and I believe that Trump stepped in it when he started talking to Mike Pence about it. What's interesting is Mike Pence is such a professional politician. He knows everything. Mike Pence is an amazing politician, but he is a politician, okay? But that guy knows what he's doing, 100%. Jump had lawyers and others who told him it was illegal. Anyway, hope you enjoy your day. Purchase your Trump Superman cards for Christmas. No, I won't. Trump is a hammer. Yes. JD, did you pick up your Trump NFT collector cards? No. Those are stupid. Did you hear me talking about NFTs? Non-fungible tokens? They don't exist. I'm not paying something for something they don't exist. Ugh, yuck. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Let's see. Let me grab. Okay, here we go. All right. So I just went to Instagram trying to find Brittany Griner's Instagram post, and all I can find is a bunch of pictures. I'm not especially sophisticated when it comes to Instagram, but she has broken her silence regarding her Russian prisoner swap. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Also, Ken DeLand, a missing American student in France, has been found alive. Yeah, he was in Spain. We will be talking more about that coming up in just a little bit. All right. So there you go. Getting back to the chat room, we've had a pretty nice little debate here on this Friday, and things are a little looser on Fridays. Let's see. I've been working with John. I did see, I asked him if he saw my answer, if he heard my answer regarding NFTs. John said this. This is interesting. Now, obviously, John is not a Trump supporter. He's either a never Trump Republican or he's a Democrat. And you can feel free to tell me if you feel like it, Johnny. I asked him if he had heard my answer regarding these non-fungible tokens, which are stupid. By the way, I've also said the same thing about cryptocurrency. What are you guys doing? Hello? People who buy cryptocurrency don't know anything about currency. It's basically this hanging curveball of swindleism about ready to close, and FTX proves it. Just because there's still a cryptocurrency business out there doesn't mean that it's not this gigantic swindle. Okay, just saying. Anyway, John says this about Donald Trump. I'm assuming a lifelong grifter has got to keep grifting even if he's running for office again. A lifelong grifter. What are you basing that on, John? Now, this is not me badgering you. There are a lot of people that believe that Donald Trump is a lifelong grifter. A lot of them are in very high government positions. But let me ask you this question. I've asked it before, and since you're interacting, let's go. What have they found that Donald Trump has been guilty of? Now, what just happened is that one of the members of the Trump organization was just nailed for tax fraud. Okay, but that guy would not testify against Donald Trump because there wasn't anything that Donald Trump was engaged in there. But I want to know what you're basing. Okay, he's not a Trump supporter. That dates back to the 80s. Okay, what I'm trying to figure out is, John, why do you think he's a lifelong grifter? The Mueller investigation was patterned after the investigation against Bill Clinton having to do with the Whitewater affair in Arkansas. It ended up being about Monica Lewinsky. In other words, what had happened is that Kenneth Starr was basically a Republican attack dog against Bill Clinton. And he was able to go anywhere he wanted to. And the Mueller investigation was indeed patterned after the Starr investigation of Bill Clinton. So it started out with Russian collusion. They couldn't prove it. But remember, they also had ongoing real-time spying on Donald Trump's campaign and his transition. So what did they find? Because remember, they didn't find anything that was criminal in the Whitewater investigation either. So you're saying he's a lifelong you're saying he's a lifelong grifter. But what I'm trying to ask you is what have they found out that's criminal? I'm just asking. And of course, I do have to ask, what do you think about what they're turning up regarding President Biden? Let's chat. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report for Friday afternoon. How you doing? My name is John David Wells. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I just realized I think I wore this very same sweater. I think I wore this very same sweater on another Friday. It's kind of weird. Yeah. This is the Wells Report. Having a wonderful conversation on the chat room regarding money. It's amazing how things morph around. More about that at some other time. Yeah. You are dealing with a very interesting, shall we say, space of time in these United States. One of those things that we just dealt with had to do with a political decision made to get back a famous basketball player and what we did to make that happen. We'll get to that in just a couple of seconds. But since we're talking about people who have either shown back up or returned to the United States, let me give you the news on a couple of people that we're talking about. One is Kenneth DeLand. He's a college kid from upstate New York. He'd been missing in France since last month. He was found alive in Spain nearly 3 weeks after spotting himself in media reports. This according to family members. Without the media's help, Kenny would have not seen himself in the news, his family said, reporting DeLand, who's 21 years old, called his parents on Friday morning. The St. John Fisher University student was studying abroad at the University Grenoble-Alpes at Grenoble, France. When he was last heard from on November 28th, he was reported missing the next day. After he did not attend class, his host family and friends had not heard from him. What had happened to Kenny? An alert. By the way, was Kenny a cast member on South Park? Because we know what happens to Kenny, don't we? Yeah. As an alert was posted on the family's website, findkendeland.com, there was a placard up that said, Kenny has been found. We will update you with more information as soon as we get it. Thank you to everybody for helping us bring Kenny home. Yeah. Yeah, they heard from him in the early morning hours of December 16th. He's in Spain. Carol, his mom, is in France, preparing to see Kenny and hopefully bring him home for Christmas and a good spanking. Without everybody's help, we wouldn't have had our son, hopefully some home for Christmas. Yeah. Grenoble Public Prosecutor Edric Vaillant confirmed in a translated tweet that DeLand had spoken with his parents on Friday morning. A spokesperson for Vaillant's office added in a statement provided to Fox News Digital, Ken DeLand has been able to get in touch with his parents today. He's supposed to be currently in Spain. All right. I'm glad that worked out. I was worried about that kid. I really was. Now, Brittany Griner. She has spoken out for the first time since returning to the U.S. nearly 10 months after she was arrested and sentenced to 9 years in Russian prison for drug smuggling. She vows she's going to return to the court to play this upcoming season. That's good. Griner posted a lengthy statement to her Instagram on Friday. She thanked a number of people, including the WNBA, the Biden administration, and her family, for advocating for her safe return home. Quote, it feels so good to be home. The last 10 months have been a battle at every turn. I dug deep to keep my faith, and it was the love from so many of you that helped keep me going. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone for your help, unquote. Griner returned to the U.S. last week after the Biden administration and Russia agreed to a prisoner swap in which Griner would be released from a Russian penal colony in exchange for Victor Bout, a convicted arms dealer. President Biden, you brought me home, and I know you're committed to bringing Paul Whelan and all Americans home, too. The basketball star was arrested at an airport in Moscow in early February after Russian authorities said she had vape cartridges with cannabis oil inside her luggage. She was sentenced to 9 years in prison after pleading guilty, arguing that she had been prescribed cannabis for pain management and inadvertently packed it. The State Department said over the summer it had offered a substantial proposal aimed at bringing both Griner and a former U.S. Marine, Paul Whelan, home. After months of no progress, the two finally agreed on a deal that secured only Griner's return. I will use my platform to do whatever I can do to help you, Griner wrote. I will encourage everyone that's played a part in bringing me home to continue their efforts to bring all Americans home. Every family deserves to be whole. The two-time Olympic gold medalist who took the opportunity to announce that she will return for the upcoming WNBA season also said this, quote, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I intend to play basketball for the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury this season, and in doing so, I look forward to being able to say thank you to all of you who advocated, wrote, and posted for me in person soon. Good statement. Well said. Well met. Very good. And let's talk a little bit about Victor Bout, and let's talk a little bit about the President of the United States and his stylings in that. I've had a few days to think this over, and I've done some work in the background. There have been an awful lot of people that have tried to turn this into a racial thing. They've tried to turn it into a political thing. And what I was able to do was I was able to find some reporting on the actual nature of the negotiations regarding Paul Whelan. The Russians are well known for trying to use, when it comes to prisoner swaps, people of like crimes. Victor Bout is a guy who is someone who, for whatever reason, is thought of as a international ne'er-do-well. Most of what Victor Bout does is legal. They got him on a process crime regarding end-user certificates for basic weapons and so on. And when you're involved in black market weaponeering, there are going to be problems. And he got popped for it in the United States. Paul Whelan was popped for espionage. And the Russians are well known for trying to swap people that are arrested for espionage in other countries with people from those countries that are arrested for espionage in Russia. They want to keep that accounting very clear. And they decided that Paul Whelan was going to require the return of one of their spies. And Victor Bout was basically essentially not in that particular group. One of their spies was a guy who's in Germany for life for killing someone. I don't remember exactly what the stories were. I had it in my head briefly, but they wanted this particular person was a political assassination of this guy that this guy perpetrated in Germany in broad daylight. And so what they wanted to do is they wanted to trade one spy for another. That's what the Russians do. And they've always done this. And they are very serious about getting what they want out of the deal. They will sit there and they'll say, okay, we have this supposed spy from the United States of America. And what we want is we want this guy out of Germany. He is either a current or former colonel in the clandestine services of Russia. And so what has to happen is that they have to make this deal, and they're very serious about doing these things. If you saw the movie, the Tom Hanks movie, that's basically a template for what we're seeing here. And so when you start thinking about all this stuff, you have a chance to get an American out. And I'm not, please understand, I can see the optics of this. I see the optics of Victor Bout for Brittany Griner, and I see the optics of leaving Paul Whelan there. But having done a little bit of background work with regards to how the Russians do business, when they got back Francis Gary Powers specifically, that was exactly what they went through. That was exactly what they wanted to get done. And that's exactly what they did. And so this is very consistent. But I'm not trying to advocate for the President of the United States so much. But that was the deal. And that was a true statement when they said that Victor Bout was the guy that they could use to get Brittany Griner out of Russia. For me, there's another bit of this regarding Victor Bout. Okay. And this is something that I will go to the bank on regarding the Biden administration. I am in no way, shape, or form ever going to entertain as real anything that President Biden or the Democrat Party wants to get done regarding control of weapons in the United States when they just dealt away the biggest gun trafficker of his age for Brittany Griner. I know exactly why they went to get Victor Bout. Do you know why they went to get Victor Bout? One, he's a Russian. Two, the other reason that they went to get Victor Bout is because those guys need some weapons. The Russian army needs weapons, and that guy knows where to get them. And that's why they wanted him. And that's why that was the only deal that was going to be able to be made. But I'm not going to listen to the Biden administration or anybody having to do with gun control in the United States after freeing the world's arch gun dealer. I'm just not going to listen to it. That invalidated their entire anti-gun agenda in the United States of America, as if the Second Amendment wasn't enough to do that already. That kind of hypocrisy is something that everybody, whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, you need to hold them accountable for this hypocrisy. That's what needs to happen. You absolutely have to do that. But Brittany Griner for Victor Bout, if that's the deal you have to make, that's the deal you have to make. I agree with the administration on that. But am I going to hold the administration accountable for dealing away the world's arch? Okay, some people would call him a terrorist, but he's not. This arch gun runner? Absolutely, I'm going to hold him accountable for that. I'm absolutely going to do that. This is just plain nuts. It is and it isn't. You want to get Brittany Griner home. I get it. I understand. But someone needs to hold the administration accountable for what they did to get her home. And I even said this when they were talking about Victor Bout. Every time you heard the name Victor Bout, you heard the Merchant of Death. That is a concoction of people reporting the story. Okay? There are a lot of people like Victor Bout that engineer weapons deals for all kinds of countries, for all kinds of reasons, in all kinds of ways. Some of them are legal, some of them are not legal. And by the way, not going to tell you how I know. All I can tell you is you would be amazed. You would just be amazed at this kind of infrastructure that is behind weapons in the world. And you would be amazed at the people wearing white hats that are involved in it. You'd just be amazed. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you about it. But you might say, now, wait a minute. This guy called the Merchant of Death, John David, is poo-pooing the fact the Merchant of Death is nothing more than a melodramatic concoction, which it is. But it's like he doesn't seem to believe that Victor Bout is this horrifyingly terrible individual. He wanted to kill Americans. Yeah, he wanted to kill Americans, all right. But then again, so did the Saudi Arabians, didn't they? As a matter of fact, 19 of them killed 3,000 of us. So when you start talking about all this stuff, there are a lot of things in play. Not the least of which is that Victor Bout, for all intents and purposes, is a businessman that made a mistake with an end user certificate and got popped. That's fine. That's fine. But the hypocrisy of dealing away a gun dealer to go back to his work, which is exactly what he's going to do, and then try to tell me that what I need to do is turn in my weapons, that's a no-go. From now on, forever, Mr. President, and anybody else who works with the president, and so on and so on. You just invalidated your reason to have any kind of gun control in the United States, like I said before, as if the Second Amendment wasn't enough to do that already. Whoa. Yeah. There was a good movie about some guy trying to sneak hash out of Turkey and got caught. That was called Midnight Run. No, I'm sorry. Midnight Express. That's what that was called. It was called Midnight Express. Okay. He wasn't sneaking in. She wasn't sneaking in hashish oil, less than a gram. She had a medical prescription for it to treat pain and inadvertently packed it in her belongings. A very consequential mistake. Well, yeah, that means that when you go someplace that's not the United States, you're not dealing with United States law. What is legal in the United States is not legal in Russia, especially if you're somebody that they can arrest for any pretext whatsoever. And so, yeah, somebody should have said, just because you can do it in America doesn't mean you can do it anywhere else. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. We're sort of kind of wandering all over the place on this broadcast. Normally, we have a pretty seriously straightforward, cohesive broadcast where we take the news articles and we put them together in a way where they are related, where they go from one to another. It's called threading. It's called a thread. It's not a theme. We don't do theme shows on the Wells Report. What we do is we will take news articles that will prove an overarching point. Okay. And on Fridays, we sort of kind of like chill out on that a bit. Okay. And we're sort of willing to be more freeform. We were talking a little bit earlier about money, and we were talking about FTX and non-fungible tokens. Non-fungible tokens are basically just a piece of computer programming code that is either pretty to look at or something or other, and you pay money for it, which is as dumb as human beings can possibly be, which leads me seamlessly into cryptocurrency, which is also as dumb as people can possibly be. And what was interesting was when we were talking about the collapse of FTX, John Bruin said the truly pathetic part was all the celebrities and athletes that were recruited to market the FTX scam. They can afford to lose money. People of lesser means cannot. Well, yeah. Let me explain something. If people, you need to understand where, I guess, if you care, you need to understand where my thoughts on money come from. First of all, I know what it is and I know what it isn't. And that came to me one night after I'd spent probably 10 years or so in Las Vegas. And I suddenly realized, oh, wait a minute, that's how money works. It actually scared me a little bit, but I figured it all out. It was fine. And it's very difficult to explain. I've tried to explain it on several different occasions, and people sort of get kind of weirded out on it. But John is bringing up a good point here. What about all the celebrity endorsers for FTX? Well, they're not the only people that do things like that. Rush Limbaugh, the great Rush Limbaugh, had a client called Lear Capital. It's a gold company. And what Lear Capital does is they make it possible for people to buy gold directly. Okay? And we were talking a little bit about gold and so on, and I'm not a big fan of it because I have always found the absurdities in purchasing gold to be, say, for example, a reason that I have never, ever worked for Lear Capital or any other gold coin company or gold bullion company because they're trying to sell financial Armageddon. And that points out a couple of absurdities that are inescapable. Thing number one, if the money is being printed by evil people like the Fed, my God, oh, if it's just being paid and your dollar is worth less and less and less, why is it that they're trying to sell you gold for dollars? Why would they sell you gold in the first place if the dollar is just basically worthless paper? That's always amazed me. And let's say you buy a 10 stack of gold coins, okay? And somebody goes, I even love the way gold feels. What are you going to do with it? So you got a handful of gold coins. You put them in a safe deposit box. What do? Well, they gather dust. They're not doing anything. In order to use the value of a gold coin, what do you have to do? You have to convert it back into that evil, worthless cash, don't you? So when somebody came up to me and said, hey, we'll sponsor you if you want to talk about gold, I said, I'm not going to sell financial Armageddon. Because think about this in just a couple of seconds. If you have these gold coins and they're sitting in your safe deposit box and there is financial Armageddon, what are you going to do? Are you going to take your little diagonal cutters and cut a little nip out of your gold coin to go buy a loaf of bread? Who's going to determine how much gold there is for a loaf of bread? The guy who's got the loaf of bread, that's who. and so on and so on. So once again, in order to use gold, you have to change it back into money. Since you can use money as an investment device in and of itself, that sort of invalidates the use of gold, doesn't it? And oh, by the way, if you're worried about inflation, invest in bonds. I mean, I am not real smart when it comes to money, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be asking you to support the Wells Report by sending me a couple of bucks every month. Okay? Which you can, by the way, by going to patreon.com/the Wells Report. Because while I will not sell financial Armageddon, I can tell you that I'm participating in financial Armageddon right now. So one of these days we'll talk about money. But there's what I should be doing What I should be doing is I should be doing I should be doing like a TED talk on money because it's fascinating. It is the greatest human achievement in the history of human beings. It truly is. Vegas, where good money goes to die. No. Vegas is where you spend money to get that momentary thrill, the possibility that you might hit a jackpot. Okay, I'll hit a jackpot this time. No, it'll be this time. No. Yeah, Tom Brady is being sued for his FTX involvement by somebody who's going to lose their lawsuit. This is the Wells Report. Back with more coming up in just a couple of moments. Hour number 3, in fact. Stay where you are. God, I really appreciate you being here, John. Thanks so much for being a part of the show today, okay? Back with more in just a couple of moments. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. What do we do here? We report the news. Honestly, fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. I make commentary. That's not the news. I differentiate between when I'm telling you news and when I'm giving you my opinion. So you know. As far as I know, I'm the only person doing this job that actually does that. Everybody else believes that everything they say and believe should be chiseled into granite and kept for thousands of eons. No? Huh? No. All I'm trying to do is get you to think. And I don't want you to think about what I want you to think about. I'm not interested in that. I just want you to get you to just think about things that are going on. And also want you to share with me what you think. Because the objective of this conversation, this is an interactive news broadcast. Imagine being able to call Lester Holt on the phone while he's doing the show and actually ask him a question about the news. Well, you can do that here because we have time. So by all means, do so. Telephone number 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. Or you can take part in the chat room. Chat room's been flying today. It's been very, very good, and I've really enjoyed it. So there you go. Let's see what else we got. Anything going on in the chat room right now? In terms of gambling, people don't win every time, but the partial reinforcement of winning sometimes means they know there's a chance they could win next time, which makes it difficult to stop. Right. I remember I lived there for 12 years, and there were only like 3 or 4 times I ever gambled. We had strict rules about our gambling. Susan and I had strict rules. The rules were when Megabucks, which was this large, it was this big progressive slot machine. When Megabucks got to over $17 million, Susan and I would go out and gamble $21. That's it. $21. In other words, you have to pay $3 per pull in order to win the Megabucks. Okay, you have to pull, so you got to spend $3. And there are machines all over town. Okay, it's like a lottery except worse. So we would go out and see a show and so on and so forth, and we'd bring $21. And we'd get the coins necessary to be able to go do the pulls. And we go do the polls. Okay. All right. We're $56 up on Las Vegas because of that gambling strategy. We left Las Vegas as winners. And you'd be amazed at what happens when it comes to Megabucks. You would be literally amazed in a bad way. I think I've told you this story, but there was a guy who was playing Megabucks, and he was sure he was going to win, but he had to go potty. So people are standing there in the casino in a line just waiting to play the machine. And if you get up and you move away from your seat, somebody else sits down, and that's that. Okay? Then you have to go back to the back of the line. So he tells his wife, okay? He tells his wife that he's going to go to the restroom and to go ahead and keep playing the machine. And so she did. She was playing the machine, and then all of a sudden, it hit. Everything came up exactly the way it was supposed to. I just won something north of $17 million. And then he found out that his wife really didn't know how to play the game. What she had done is she had just put in $1. So she won like Susan and I won. I think it was $125. And what ended up happening is this guy literally hit her in the face and cold cocked her right there. He's probably out of jail now, but he knocked his wife out because that's why I don't gamble. I used up all my gambling mojo on race cars. Yeah, that's a different thing. If you've ever watched Street Outlaws, yeah. Except I didn't play for that much money, and I didn't have that kind of car. I didn't have that fast a car. Let's keep rolling here. Back to the news. This is an article that is based on what might be news out of USA Today. Normally, I leave stuff like this alone because it's not news. Basically, what it is it's a projection of news, but it does bring up something that I think we ought to talk about, and that's this. China is likely to see an explosion of COVID-19 cases in the coming weeks, according to experts, as the country lifts long-standing and highly unpopular zero COVID-19 policy. How bad do people hate being locked in their house over something like COVID-19? How bad do they hate it? They hate it so bad that in a country where the government can just make you disappear anytime they wish, for any reason they wish, they've watched an entire populace where anybody that had anything close to alpha dog tendencies was immediately shot. What ended up happening is that they took to the streets and they yelled and screamed and so on and so forth, and they got China to change their policies. And China did. Extremely vulnerable right now. Its population, older adults, are most likely to suffer severe disease, is under-vaccinated. Why? There's no reason for that. They don't have any natural immunity from infection and a limited supply of treatments. Experts predict hundreds of millions of infections and as many as 1.5 million to 2 million deaths. Now, remember, they've got like 1.5 billion people living in the country. That's not a huge number of people. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not 1.5 million people. That's a lot of people. Okay, but the thing about it is, remember, their country has 1.5 billion people in it. 1.5 billion. 1 billion is 1,000 millions. So we're talking about 1.5 to 2% of their population. And so what they tried to do is they tried to do something that was not going to work from the get-go. As a matter of fact, when I pointed that out at the early days of COVID-19 in this country, when they started talking about these lockdowns, they're not going to work. And China is a perfect reason why, and a perfect example of them not working. So they had COVID-19, they put everybody in their houses, right? COVID-19 starts to drop. They start having lower caseloads, so on and so on and so on. So they let people out. Meantime, the people that were all locked up, they're not developing anything close to an immune system against COVID-19. So they let them back out and they start seeing these things going back up again. So they lock everybody down. And they've been doing this for years. And it's not working. It's not going to work. It never, ever will work because you're not giving this virus a chance to do its work and then be gone. And that's the problem. This is the best thing that could possibly happen for China. If Xi Jinping is smart, what he's going to do is say, we are completely getting rid of our zero COVID policy. Do whatever you want. We suggest that if you're aged and infirm, or you have diabetes, or blah 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 blah, whatever it is, these pre modalities, that you take extraordinary steps, and then just back off. They're going to lose people anyway. They're going to lose people anyway. Just like we did here in America. Everybody got vaccinated. More people died during the Joe Biden administration than the Donald Trump administration. That's not a political victory or a political defeat in any way, shape, or form. That's the nature of the disease. And so it's going to happen. Whether you pacify or oppress your people or not. So if China just says, okay, it's all gone, do whatever you want to. If you have a pre-existing condition, this is what you ought to do, and good luck. And we'll do our absolute dead level best to get more ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine from America because they have stockpiles of it they haven't used because their government told them not to use it, which is absolutely ridiculous. Okay? Now, Michael Osterholm, the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota, says instead of falling off a 5-foot cliff, we're going to watch them fall off of a 1,000-foot cliff. Well, okay, but Once again, melodramatic statements signifying nothing. The way to handle a disease like this is just like you always handle viruses. You treat the symptoms. That's what you do. You can't give somebody an antibiotic and get rid of a virus. That's not the way they work. You can do a vaccine, right? The flu vaccine, the flu is a virus. And yes, what you can do is you can create antibodies that kill the flu virus. You can do that, and we've been doing it for years and years and years, and we've done basically the same thing for COVID-19. And the thing about it is it didn't quite work as well as a flu shot, although it's possible that it worked exactly like a flu shot. For example, people say, I just got a flu shot and I got the cold, then I actually got the flu. Well, yeah, that may be the case, actually. But because you got the vaccine, it was less harsh on you. Okay. Because believe me, when I was unprotected from a flu, the last time I had a flu, which was 12 years ago, yeah, I decided I was never going without another flu shot again. As a matter of fact, I had them on the air for years and years. Did them live on the air. And so the simple case of the matter is that the vaccines for flu and the vaccines for COVID-19 probably worked about the same. And so the point of the matter is this. There are times when you have to actually genuinely look at real science. And people have been dealing with viruses for hundreds of thousands of years. We've been dealing with viruses for a very long time. Not much has changed in the way you actually treat them. You need to treat this like a virus. Wash your hands. Get plenty of rest. Okay, wear a mask if you want to. Probably not going to help much, but it might help a little. Wash your hands, plenty of fluids, plenty of rest, etc., etc. Treat the symptoms. Which means that if indeed your lungs are becoming inflamed because of COVID-19, then try to get something that will get rid of that inflammation, like, for example, hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin or any number of other things. Treat the symptoms. Remember, the only reason that I did not perish when I got the flu the last time 12 years ago is because of Tamiflu. What does Tamiflu do? Does Tamiflu actually make your flu go away? No. It makes you feel better. It doesn't actually treat the disease at all. It just makes you feel better. And believe me, I started taking Tamiflu and that was good enough. Yes, indeedy. So all these people in China that are, and all these experts that are saying, my God, they're going to fall off a 1,000-foot cliff instead of a 5-foot cliff. Well, yeah, they're going to. What they need to do is they just need to stop stopping people from falling off the cliff. Most of them are going to survive anyway. Like a huge number are going to survive anyway. So just let the disease run its course and be a happy country for a change. This is the Wells Report. Back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. We bring you the news. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We make commentary and we debate. It's what we do here on the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us today. Appreciate it. An Iowa construction worker who was among the first rioters to enter the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, has been sentenced to 60 months in prison, 36 months supervised release, and $2,000 worth of restitution. That happened today. Des Moines native Doug Jensen, easily spotted in pictures from the Capitol riot thanks to the Q t-shirt he was wearing. That was an homage to the conspiracy movement QAnon. Addressed the court today before the sentence was announced, saying, "I can't change my past. I can just look to the future." He added he does not plan to get involved in the judicial system again, and he wants to go back to being the family man he was before he got involved in politics. Though U.S. District Judge Timothy Kelly did acknowledge mitigating factors, his mental health, Jensen's mental health, and dozens of favorable letters submitted to the court by his friends and family, he was not convinced by Jensen's own plea. Jensen's statement did not suggest that he understood, quote, why what happened was wrong, said Judge Kelly. After handing down the sentence, Kelly emphasized to Jensen that despite his wrongdoing, he's not a monster. We've talked a lot about how you were not a hero and not a patriot on January 6th, but you, like everyone else who comes through my courtroom, are not a monster either. You made a serious mistake, but don't lose sight of your intrinsic value as a person. Throughout the proceeding, Jensen frequently looked to his wife, April, for reassurance, giving her thumbs up, blown kisses, and exasperated looks. Jensen was convicted of obstructing an official proceeding and 6 other criminal charges in September for his role in the January 6, 2021 attack. During his trial, prosecutors showed extensive video and photographs of Jensen parading through the Capitol. The jury also heard testimony from law enforcement with whom he had clashed in the building. According to testimony and video, Jensen pursued U.S. Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman up a staircase inside the building. Goodman later said that the Iowa man encouraged fellow rioters to keep running because the officer was just one person. We're thousands. Prosecutors argued that Jensen was the rioter who would not back down. If it wasn't all recorded from at least 10 different angles, it'd be pretty hard to believe, said the prosecutors. Jensen's attorney, Christopher Davis, argued that Jensen was dressed in costume, not dressed for battle, like some at the Capitol on January 6th. The COVID-19 pandemic did weird things to everybody, perhaps Jensen more than others, Davis argued, repeatedly calling the Iowa rioter a confused man. You know, just a quick break in the news here for a second. A great deal of America, a great deal of what this country is psychological. In other words, we believe this to be a great country. We believe this to be a just and true country. And things that shake that opinion, like, for example, the two-tiered legal system, the double standards, the hypocrisy, when those things rule the day, people get nervous and they make really dumb moves. And that's, of course, when you have to be as smart as you can possibly be. For example, had I been at the Capitol building, I would have told those people, do not go past the police barricades. Don't do it. We don't need to. We just stand here and sing the national anthem. That's really all we have to do. Because it was a trap. That's why the police officers were opening up the gates. It was a trap. That's why I say don't ever go to Washington, D.C. with anything except a copy of the Constitution and an American flag. Don't do it. All you have to do is appear. All you have to do is be American. And this guy was at his wit's end, quite literally, because of COVID-19 and what the government was doing, which he saw was completely incorrect. More about this story here in just a couple of minutes. You're watching The Wells Report. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. It's the Friday before the weekend, and I'm glad that you are here. You can take part in the broadcast by going to the chat room, or you can call us at 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Talking about Doug Jensen. He's going to jail for 60 months plus 36 months supervised custody and also a $2,000 restitution. Okay. What happened was the defense argued that Doug Jensen was an uneducated union laborer who became overwhelmed by conspiracy theories, specifically the QAnon theories. He told the judge, Jensen's attorney told the judge prior to the sentencing being handed down, that his client had a childhood of horrors that began in infancy. The context of his childhood influenced his belief system. Well, there are an awful lot of things influencing people's belief system here. As I was saying before the break, a lot of what America is psychological. We have these freedoms. We have these freedoms that are God-given, brilliantly elucidated in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. They're written down. But, it's amazing how many contracts that are written down are distorted, how they're misinterpreted, because the idea is that once you have a contract, if somebody has a dispute with it, they can do whatever they want to regardless of the contract, but it has to get settled in court. And so this is a self-licking ice cream cone, right? So what ends up happening is that, and the point that I want to make here, America being mostly psychological, people who are in positions where they spend a lot of time in front of one of these microphones, these cameras, they need to be responsible. They need to be careful, because there are real people, flesh and bone, out there listening to what people say. Now, I know what the truth is. I know how to report it. I understand my place in space here. My job is to not either frighten mom and pop America to death or lie to them in any way, shape, or form without scaring mom and pop America to death. And the way you do that is to inform yourself. In my way of thinking, you can go to the bank with everything that I say, because you're going to get the very best possible product of truth that I can formulate every single day. Is it always correct? No, but it's always truthful. And so I don't have to worry about what Alex Jones has to worry about. I don't have to worry about those people that blog about or podcast about the QAnon conspiracy theories. I don't have to do any of that. I wouldn't do it if I could, because there are people out there listening, and you can frighten them to death and they can do really dumb things when they otherwise would not. There are an awful lot of people that are making anti-American moves. And they are self-evident, and they are lurid, and they are frightening. But you'll note that there are an awful lot of people that say, my God, it's a false flag operation. We should all arm ourselves to the teeth and go out there and be ready for battle. I don't say those things. I say, go out and get yourself a container of bankers boxes. Put the name of your congressional representative on them, along with the senator or the two senators. You get them in packs of 3. So 2 senators and your representative, put their names on them. Drive to Washington, D.C., assemble them, and drop them off, and then drive back home. It's the Banker's Box Rebellion. Tell these people to go home. Because you use Banker's Boxes to gather your stuff when you get fired. And the people of the United States would thus show something that is a very, very good symbol. Now, is there legal exposure there? Yeah, you can get a ticket for littering. And I said, if that's enough to stop you, then let it stop you. But even if it's a $250 littering fine, it might be the best money you ever spend. When the war starts, we'll all know. You won't have to guess. You won't have to grab the 10,000 rounds of ammunition and realize that you overload your pickup truck when you put it in the back of the truck and then head out for the hills. You don't have to do that. And if you ever do have to do that, you'll know. You absolutely will. In the meantime, be cool. Don't end up like Doug Jensen. Doug's probably going to be okay. If his wife doesn't leave him and so on and so forth, and he comes out of this chastened, he'll probably be fine. But he's a very good example for anybody else. Actually, everybody else. Because if you're somebody like me, make sure that you're doing the righteous thing when it comes to your neighbors. Don't scare them so badly that they build a moat around their house and walk and parole the perimeter with their shotguns. Because nobody's showing up. At least not yet. So be gentle with the people around you. Tell them the truth, by all means. I tell you the truth. I do. I tell you the things you got to worry about, and I tell you the things that are, being turned into something that they're not. I talked about Victor Boot. He's a notorious gun runner. Is he the merchant of death? No. That's a contrivance. Is he a good guy? Probably not. Does he want to kill Americans? Well, that's what he said. Has he killed any of us? Don't know. Don't know. But what I can tell you is that Victor Boot will get his. There's no doubt about it. Just give it time, says the master of Zen. So the point of the matter of all of this is, when someone says something that's especially inflammatory or frightening to you, don't take it to the bank. Relax. Inform yourself. I do it every single day. When I'm really, really concerned about something, I'll go to the law and figure out what the law says. Then I'll point that out on this broadcast. I've done it 100,000 times. Well, not 100,000, but certainly 1,000 times. Because that's my job. But when somebody says something to you and has a really convincing argument for it, wait. Wait until the truth makes itself evident, because it will. It only takes time. You have to be patient. You got to be patient in what's going on. Inform yourself. Pay attention. You'll be fine. All of us will be. If anything, all of this ridiculous green climate, the leftist, progressive, anti-American sludge that we're all slogging through right now, all that's going to do is define how loud the argument is going to be when America gets back to being America. It's just a conversation. It's not going to be a fist fight. We don't have to worry about the bar fight. We don't have to worry about the new civil war. We don't have to worry about those things. What we have to worry about is, why is it that those people are trying to frighten us so badly? Look behind the curtain. What's this fear-mongering actually for? What's the reality of it? We talked a little bit about that regarding gold. You got to buy gold. But because the money's being printed, it's worthless. Every time they print money, your dollar becomes less valuable. That isn't really the case. But that's a great example of people using fear to enrich themselves. And I point out the absurdity. Oh, they'll sell you gold all right, but what are they going to sell it for? That's right, money. The very money they're saying is worthless, but it doesn't seem to be worthless to them because they'll sell you gold for money. Hello? That's the kind of thing that you need to keep in mind. And if you don't have the answers, ask. Ask. Ask around. You get stuck? Ask me. Like I said, it's my job. And I'll tell you this. One of the things about me doing my job, I actually get to research things. I'll do it right here on the broadcast. I'm not on the radio at this particular moment, so there's, I can take extra time that I normally wouldn't take. But I can take the time and I can actually do it. I've done it on the radio anyway. The bosses drives them crazy. But I'm just going to get the answers. I'm just going to get the answers because you need them. You wouldn't be asking me otherwise. We may disagree, but not when it comes to facts. Not when it comes to facts. I just won't do that because there's enough people that are trying to hurt us. I'm not going to be the next one. So Doug Jensen, he's going to be gone for a while. Prosecutors have charged more than 880 people in 48 states with participating in the riot. And by the way, the arrests are continuing. I also did this. I was extremely annoyed by a lot of the fact that there were people in the January 6th riot that were seemingly not being handled as fairly as they should have been based on the BLM rioting of the summer of 2020. I went and I looked at the actual people that were actually arrested and actually got sent to jail. There's a guy that went to jail for 9 years for setting one of the famous fires. And so just because we saw FBI wanted posters for the people of January 6th, we didn't see those for the BLM rioters, but we did see them for January 6th. Please understand that there was at least a bit of balanced law enforcement there. A lot more people were arrested in the BLM riots than were arrested in January 6th. So keep that in mind. A lot more went to jail too. Now, did they spend months and months and months in solitary confinement? Probably not. They were probably on house arrest, which is what should have happened with the January 6th folk. But they were trying to make an example out of them, which is in itself unfair. But that being said, that's where we are. But please, do not be taken in by somebody that has fire in his eyes and is absolutely sure that the end is coming. They're everywhere. And they will motivate you to disaster if you let them. Do the research. Get the answers. If you get stuck, give me a call. 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Mark Greer says, I want to see the rest of the video. I want to see the rest of the video of the January 6th attacks, the January 6th riot. I do too. I want to see all of it. I really do. I want to see all of it. There was, and it's leaking out. We'll see more of it as time goes by. A lot of the people that have a lot of their personal reputations staked on the hysteria that was built around January 6th, like the January 6th committee, all those people, when they retire, the reality of what they were dealing with will be shown. And if the Republican Party would do its job, the January 6th committee would not be disbanded. It would be redone. It would be redone in a way that was actually worth the amount of time spent on it. And the rest of the videotape would be released. And the rest of the statements made by January 6th would be made. And hearsay evidence would not be entertained. We'd do it right. We wouldn't have star witnesses saying, well, I heard from somebody else that. No, that doesn't make you a star witness. That makes you the wrong person sitting in the wrong seat at the wrong moment. That's what it means. And what we would have after that would be actually a better understanding of what happened that day. But it's my hope that our leaders suddenly stop trying to pit us against each other and trying to foment a fight. I hope they do that soon. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Somebody asked me once, why do I wait about 10 seconds or so before I start talking? Well, because in the vast scheme of things, when people put this on the radio, there's a little piece of music playing and they play this little announcement. They say, Bill Thompson will be joining you tomorrow morning with your chance to win $5. Don't miss it. And that takes about 10 seconds. And then I come up with, this is the Wells Report, and so on and so forth. It's very seamless. Anyway, that's what that 10 seconds is for, in case you were wondering. So, as you know, if you've been paying attention to the Wells Report, if you've been watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, etc., I better put Patreon in there. If you've been watching this broadcast, you will know that at the end of the year, the news and analysis and commentary and debate genre of American shall we say, entertainment, or at least American information, sort of begins to sort of fold up a little bit because people are thinking about other things. They're thinking about the anniversary of the birth of Jesus Christ, if they're Christians. They're thinking about the joyous miracle of oil and lamps, if they're Jewish, and other people wish and celebrate and worship other things. But this is the time of year where everybody sort of sits down and eats cookies and enjoys each other's company. It's also the time of year when something else very important happens in American life. That's when your health insurance deductible is paid off and you can get something that's been driving you nuts taken care of. So I don't know whether you remember this or not, but I had a bike accident. It happened a couple of years ago or maybe a year ago. I smashed my nose. I did a faceplant on concrete on a bike. I still get butterflies whenever I think about it. Anyway, part of that accident involved tearing my prepatellar bursa. Do you know what that is? You have this little membrane. It's around all your joints. It's this little membrane that holds fluid to keep your joints lubricated and so on and so forth. Well, you've got one under the skin of your knee on the top of your patella, which is your kneecap. There's a bursa there. And it was blasted to smithereens. And when it grew back, it sort of got inflamed and filled up with water. And it sort of it actually doesn't look like water. It looks more like beer. Anyway, it filled up with fluid. And every time I go out and exercise, if I walk, for example, and I've been doing a lot of that, it swells up to about the size of a golf ball. Well, on Monday, I'm going to have that taken out. It'll be day surgery. It'll be simple. I'll leave you a message on most of these same platforms to let you know that I'm okay. And I'll be doing that on Monday. Then on Thursday, I'm going to embark on a family road trip. I'm going to go see my first and only granddaughter and my other grandson, which I've met already. His name is Mitchell Richard. And I'm going to be seeing Josephine. Josephine is going to be in my arms for days and days and days over Christmas. And like I said, that is a very loud jet. Did you hear that? Wow. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. I was saying that was a very loud jet. Let's move on. No, I'm going to be spending time with my third son, Mitchell's family. And we're going to have a ball. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to, I'm going to get to meet Miss Josie. And I'm looking forward to it. I will be back on January 2nd, Monday, January 2nd, for another year of Wells Reports, God willing. Okay? You're going to be a grandpa soon, Eddie? Any day, huh? God bless you, man. Kiss that baby. You're going to love it. They're awesome. Anyway, yeah. Thank you, John. It'll be okay. It's a small thing. It's like they almost, I really wanted to say, can I be awake for this? Because I'd really like to see it. It's nothing serious. It's basically what it is it's basically like a blister. Okay. Except when they go in, they have to remove the bursa. It grows back, but they have to remove it and so on and so on. That way you don't have this golf ball sticking off the top of your knee. It looks terrible. It's not vanity that I'm doing it for, because it can eventually rupture and get nasty and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not interested in doing that, but I am interested in getting this thing fixed. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. And like I said, I'll be going on vacation after that. So I will be coming back to the platforms that you are currently watching this broadcast on. I'll come back to the platforms and I will be giving you updates throughout the vacation. Probably not many, but I'm going to try to do at least one a day. All right. Great grandpapa 1 and grandpa 5 times. Outstanding. Yeah, we're going to visit 8 of our 10 grandkids over the holidays. That's going to be fun. That's going to be wonderful. Bursa, John Bruin says, Bursa are found anywhere friction needs to be reduced. Correct. Yeah, I don't know how much friction there's going to be between the skin of my knee and the skin and my patella while that thing breaks, while that thing heals, but we'll see. Anyway, it's not going to be any big deal, and I'm looking forward to it. being gone, and I'm looking forward to the rest and so on and so on. But I want to say thank you. Thank you very much for supporting this broadcast. I came back from mission in May. In June 1st, I started doing the Wells Report again, and you have been with me every day. And it means so much to me. And I want to thank you for supporting this broadcast as you do. I will return for more of the Wells Report in 2023. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy New Year. And I'll see you January 2nd. Until then, God bless. Alrighty then, I've had 11 orthopedic surgeries over my lifetime. That beats my record. Let's see, 2 necks, 2 rotator cuffs. Yeah. If all medical problems were solvable for surgery, like unfortunately, neurological issues don't work that way. That's right, John. And if you're dealing with those, I'm going to pray for you as soon as I get off this broadcast. I certainly will. Let's see what else. See you the second, Ms. Lois. Thank you very much. What else is going on here? Yeah, we've done a lot of great work. We've done a lot of great work in this half of this year. And I sincerely appreciate the fact that you were watching it. And God bless you in your endeavors. And have a great holiday. Please get some rest. Get some rest. And until January 2nd, keep watching this space because I will be dropping in every now and then, okay? I will be dropping in, I swear. And I'll be doing some things so that you know that I'm still around.